Thank you to our sponsors for today's video, Ionna, InfyPower, and Eaton. Ionna, North America's premier charging network. With unmatched commitment to elevating the customer experience, Ionna is opening America's roads to all EVs, giving drivers the coverage they need, the reliability they deserve, and the amenities they crave. Also, InfyPower, the largest EV charger module provider with over 3 million power modules running reliably worldwide. Their latest G2 collection features ultra-high power density and efficiency for EV charging and energy storage integration. InfyPower, innovation for your power. And Eaton. Eaton is a one-stop shop for implementing reliable and innovative EV charging infrastructure at your site. Across all applications, Eaton's EV charging infrastructure, hardware, and software gives you the scalability, flexibility, and intelligence you need to charge today and scale up tomorrow. Learn more at eaton.com/EVCI. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video and another episode of EV Inbox. I got to start doing these more. They're so much fun. You guys have asked some incredible questions on my social media online, and I have picked 8 topics to discuss, many of which have to do with EV charging, especially in America, but some have to do with electric cars in general when it comes to reliability or best cars for Uber or rideshare driving. And so I've got some great questions from our viewers here. Huge shout out to you guys for sending me these. And these are the 8 questions I thought would make a fantastic video. So join me for another episode of EV Inbox. Well, without further ado, let's get straight into the questions here. And the first question comes from actually my new friend, Sip. And Sip runs a YouTube channel called Notch EV. And I just spent the last week with him where we raced 7 electric SUVs from the very northern tip of Maine, Fort Kent, Maine, all the way to Key West, Florida, an over 2,000-mile crazy journey. And stay tuned to our Out of Spec motoring videos to see the full race. It was really cool. Sip is an owner of a Lucid Gravity, and he actually brought his car along, and I'll leave his YouTube channel linked in the description below. He asks, is there a way to know while charging if you are site limited or charging limited? And this is a really interesting question. How do you know if your charging session is limited by the vehicle or by the charger? And well, there's so many factors that go into there, and there's not a single easy way to explain this to you guys. The first would be if something tells you, although sometimes these can lie to you. So for example, in Sip's car, the Lucid Gravity and others like Porsche and even some GM products will tell you when, or BMW does a really good job of this as well, and Mercedes and so on. Many automakers do. They'll tell you when you are charging at the expected rate for the vehicle or if it's requesting more power. For example, Tesla will pop up a message on the charging screen and it'll say charging session limited by charging performance or charger performance, something like that, site performance. And that's a pretty clear way to get an indication that your car may be limited from the charger. Although pretty much with every vehicle I've ever tested, I've seen them throw up those warnings when they are still getting the expected charge rate. So it's hard for a lot of those algorithms to really get that dialed in 100%. On the flip side, there's very few charging hardware out there that will tell you when it's charger limited or vehicle limited. However, ChargePoint actually does a great job of this. There might be others out there as well, but I recently experienced this at a Mercedes-Benz high-power charging station where I plugged in the Lucid Gravity and it said that it was EV limited, which means when my Lucid Gravity actually derated on charging performance, the charger indicated that it was EV limits. The car was requesting less than the charger could give it. And that was a great indication to know, hey, even though I'm not charging at the expected rate, the car is the problem. Maybe I overheated the battery pack. The charger can still give me more. That was a great way to know. Other than that, it's a lot of guesswork and it's a lot of knowing what your car can handle in certain conditions. For example, we do a ton of vehicle testing on our Out of Spec testing channel where we give you charging curves of the theoretical maximum performance your vehicle can charge at any given state of charge. And if you're way off of what we've seen on the same car with the same battery in another test, well, you know that your car's probably got an issue or the charger has an issue. And that's a good way to know you are at least limited by something. And I should do a whole video on some of the impacts of charging station derates, whether it's adapters getting hot and actually relying on vehicle inlet ports or charger cables to derate the charging performance. Again, many adapters don't have any sort of logic in them to translate the signal to slow down charging, although there are some out there that can do that. You could look at site level load sharing, whether you've maxed out a total charging station. The list goes on and on. There's probably 50 different reasons you may experience a charger derate. And if you want to see that as a full dedicated video, I'm happy to do that for you guys. So Sip, I'm sorry to not give you a super straightforward answer, but don't always trust what the car says. Don't always trust what the charger says. Charging derates happen all the time. You'd think it's 2025. We could just get perfect charging sessions at every stop. And the reality is so far from the truth. There is always something limiting charging performance. And just seems to be like we can never get perfect sessions out there anymore, or really at all. So thanks, Sip, for the question, and sorry to give you such a disappointing answer. Hey guys, I'm just coming off track in my Renault Twizy right now, pulling up for a little mobile recharge. Guys, I want to say a huge thank you to Bluetti for sponsoring this video. I've got something so cool to show you. Let me show you this. This is the Bluetti Apex 300, and it is genuinely one of the coolest mobile power stations I've had the chance to check out. I can think of so many use cases for something like this. The first would be off-grid living, powering it by solar, having a battery to store the energy and then run your house or your camp off at night. Then, of course, RVing. My parents just got into RVing, and this has a ton of features, and it actually includes a RV 30 amp plug right there. And then think about whole home backup. You can make a stackable battery storage system like this to over 50 kilowatt hours to protect your home for outages and even to do some peak shaving. It even features a 11.5 kilowatt grid pass-through for EV charging. So it's just some incredible stuff. Now, in this case, I'm going to show you my favorite use case, which is charging my Twizy wherever I go. So check this out, guys. I have a NEMA 1450 240 volt plug right here. And what I love is this genuinely can output 240 volt power. So I can plug that in right there. I can take my charging cord straight from the Twizy and I can charge it wherever I go. And basically, I have myself a range extender. Believe it or not, this battery pack right here has almost the same energy capacity as my entire car. Okay, it's a small car, but still pretty cool. So guys, I absolutely love just bringing portable power wherever I go. And the nice thing is I can completely monitor this from anywhere in the world because I currently have this hooked up to a Wi-Fi station and this will read how much power we're pulling. We're doing 2 kilowatts right now, straight to the Twizy. This thing is dead silent. Absolutely amazing just how quiet this thing is. Actually, the loudest thing is the Twizy that's charging. Now, when this does recharge, it takes, about 40 minutes to 80%. If you have a strong enough source, you can power it from anything. Solar panels, a 12 volt in a car, or of course a regular wall outlet. And depending on what you plug it into will determine the amount of recharge time. But again, you can use this for extreme 240 volt applications, or you have just regular, NEMA 520 outlets that are 20 amp max, and you can pull almost 2 kilowatts from them. It is one of the most versatile, insane mobile battery units I've ever experienced. Yes, you can get a cart and stack batteries to make it totally, flexible in terms of where you bring it. However, the way that I like to use it is just standalone. I carry it, I can pick it up, and I just threw it here in the back of my Land Rover so I can power my Twizy wherever I go. So shout out to Bluetti for sponsoring this video. Their app is great. Their units are great. I love working with them, and hopefully we'll do more with them in the future. So all you need to do is visit the link in the description below to learn more about their Bluetti energy storage products. But here, with the Apex 300, I don't know what more I could ask for. This is kind of the perfect mobile power solution for me. The next question comes from my buddy Dan Birkland, who I think also got a question in on the first EV Inbox episode, and he asks, based on your experience, what is the most reliable non-Tesla charging network in operation in the US today? And Dan correctly points out the amazing reliability of the Tesla supercharger network. It is still second to none to have so many stalls out there working, honestly, at almost a 100% level. Tesla does an amazing job when it comes to their charging hardware because they own the charging equipment in the sense that they built it, they service it, they understand the equipment, and, like I mentioned, they service it. They got techs everywhere that can go out and work on these things. They've just built up an amazingly robust charging experience for their EV drivers, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. But what if you don't want to use the Tesla supercharger network? And there are many reasons why you would not to. You may want higher voltage capable chargers to give you higher power charging, better locations, etc., or even more charging power in general. Of course, the sponsor of this video is Ionna. I'd be stupid not to give them a shout out because they genuinely are doing a fantastic job with EV charging, but it's also important to note that they are still early days in the build out of their network. And while I have had nothing but great experiences there have been a couple little hiccups that they have fixed immediately, and they are super dedicated and focused on building a great EV driver experience. They just don't have the network expansion that Tesla has yet. Now, Ionna is expanding massively, and so I expect to see so many stalls coming in the very near future. I think they have like 1,200 or 1,500 ports that are installed or under construction right now, and they just started. It's amazing. But again, everything's pretty fresh. So what else is out there that's really good that deserves recognition? Well, I have to say, Mercedes-Benz charging network has been surprisingly great to us. Now, we recently just did this road trip race, like I mentioned, and everyone on the race was either looking for Ionna or Mercedes charging points. And Mercedes is really seemingly staying on top of their sites. They are hyper fixated, and more than anything, it doesn't come down to the charging hardware that you use. It doesn't come down to the sites that you pick. What EV drivers want really is to know that when you go there, you're going to get the full charging power at the expected level and you'll be good to rock and roll. And Mercedes, I know the people there. We've done videos with them. They are watching every single charging session, every single log. They deploy service as soon as there's an issue out there. And they just seem to be in love with providing a good customer experience. And to me, that's what matters. Are you going to have people hyper fixated on watching the data and hyper fixated on getting stuff fixed as soon as possible when something goes wrong? It's what Tesla does. It's what Ionna does. It's what Mercedes seems to be doing. And I'm really excited to see that. Some other notable mentions for worst charging experiences go to Electrify America this week. I've had more than my fair share of derates and station faults out there, which you will see in upcoming videos. Really a disappointment. EVgo has had, other than their pilot flying J locations, unbelievable numbers of derated high-power charging experiences. They seem to have just gone silent. I've tagged them in posts online saying, hey, what's going on? Every time I go to a Delta high-power charging site, it's just derated. It will not give me full power, probably to avoid site demand charges. That's why they do it in Colorado. Really annoying. I would like to give a shout out to BP Pulse for being a great experience, but I just haven't seen the level of care needed at a BP Pulse site in terms of labeling and making a really nice customer experience to say they're good. Although I will look them up and use them over EVgo or Electrify America. So I think they're kind of somewhere in the middle. Keep an eye on BP Pulse stations and try them locally. I will say I blew up an entire site, or there was some kind of issue while I was charging at one on this road trip, and the whole site went offline. And I don't think that was on BP Pulse. That was more on the utility side, is my guess. But still, just, I don't know, didn't get the best feeling. So I would say Ionna and Mercedes doing a fantastic job out there. The others, EA's really got to step up their game. EVgo really has to step up their game. And there's some other out there like Suncoast Charging now installing Tesla equipment, BP Pulse, and other network operators that seem to be doing an okay job. But those are the big ones out there. So thanks, Dan, for your question. Let's move on. The next question comes from Margino Cefalia. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. If you were going to be a rideshare driver in Denver and actually drive 370 miles a day, 5 to 6 days a week, yes, you'll have to pay for some DC charging, and you're going to hit potholes, speed bumps for 70 hours a week. You needed luggage space for 4 and had a limited budget. What used EV would you get? Man, this is a tough question because you're going to need something super reliable, super hardy, and something that is just going to be able to work for you for miles on end. Now, obviously we're looking at used, and you're going to be looking at an EV that you need a lot of space for. I still come back to every single time the Tesla Model Y being a great rideshare car. You have good HVAC in the rear. I really would recommend getting one of the upgraded Juniper cars. Yes, you can find them used now, or yeah, you probably can't do a lease. You're driving so much. But that car has much smoother suspension than the first generation. And clearly they're just going to hold up from a mileage and durability perspective better than almost anything out there. Plus, with native access to the supercharger network and cheaper charging rates without needing to get their subscription model, that kind of seems like the best move. You're going to have great driver assistance on that car. And potentially, if you wanted to go even cheaper, you can go with an early Model Y, long range all-wheel drive, and actually upgrade the suspension with the Juniper suspension. I've heard of people doing this. That will really soften the ride quality of the car, but clearly it is not a great experience to ride in the back of a first-generation Tesla Model Y as a passenger. They're just so bumpy and uncomfortable. You need something to soften the ride, and it might even be worth going to Mountain Pass Performance and getting their comfort suspension set up. I actually did that with my Model 3, and it changed the entire ride quality of the vehicle. And so that's what I would recommend. Model Y is just going to be reliable. You're going to have great software, great driver assistance, tons of room, easy access to the supercharger network, and no one's going to complain about it if you just fix the suspension. That was really the main issue with that car as a rideshare vehicle. Other options to look into potentially would be the Hyundai Ioniq 5. They seem to be holding up really well with a ton of mileage and also offer a ton of space, but I would stay away from the BZ4X or Solterras only because of cold weather charging performance in Denver. Unless you're getting a brand new one, they don't support battery preconditioning and just charge so slow. So I think a great alternative to the Model Y would be an Ioniq 5. You'd get great charging performance. Just make sure it's on the newer software that allows for battery preconditioning, because again, you will need to DC charge, and it does get cold in Denver in the winter. So that's something to keep in mind. Grammy Smith asks, what's my favorite performance summer tire? Well, perfect question to ask as we're coming into the winter months. But I'm typically a Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 guy. Really love that tire for like a hardcore performance tire, maybe a Cup 2R. But I think a nice all-around tire is still a PS4S or the new PSS5. Michelin, to me, just builds a great tire. They have great OE adaptations as well that I really do love. Pirelli has got some cool OE adaptations. I don't really love their off-the-shelf tires, but I have to experience some of their new ones and see if they live up to the expectation that Michelin has set. Goodyear has some great summer performance tires as well, with the Supercar 3R tire being an insane Cup 2R competitor and others. So there's some great tires out there, but my default has always just been going to a Michelin tire. But I would be happy to be swayed. Maybe when we come into the summer months, I'll do a summer tire comparison test and maybe reach out to some of my friends who actually review tires on YouTube as their main job, and maybe we can do a collab here at the Out of Spec track. Rick Hunter asks, is there any EV in the US market that is reliable as a Toyota Corolla that you could run forever and ever, and if it needs any repairs, you can fix it without taking it to the official service center? So you're basically looking for the Toyota Corolla of EVs. Well, I've been looking for, on the charging side, the Toyota Corolla of EV charging. I just want a charger that can sit there and run for 10 years with no maintenance, and if it does, it can be fixed instantaneously. And I haven't found that. As far as electric cars go, I think the clear answer here is the Tesla Model 3, not the standard range. You would need to go for the long range pack. The standard range Model 3s have early cell failure because they get worked a little bit harder. The long range Model 3 just seems to be amazing. Maybe you could even look at the Raven Tesla Model S with the non-performance drive unit. Friends of mine have gotten 500,000 miles out of their Raven Model S's with almost no maintenance required. I have an update video coming on one that has almost 300,000 miles on it, and it's been totally fine for them. So I think Tesla has really proven the reliability side, but then also the repair side. Now, we have a whole repair channel on Out of Spec called Out of Spec Renew, where my colleague Alex actually repairs EVs for a living. And he personally drives a 500,000 mile Tesla Model S, and it's been wonderful for him. And he's been going through upgrade processes on that car as well. So they're easy to work on, they're known, and they are hardy vehicles. Everything else out there just doesn't have the third-party repair knowledge that you would want when you're going to be running the mileage up on a vehicle like this. Teslas are prolific, parts are cheap, and there's tons of knowledge out there to keep them on the road. And I have to give a big shout out to their service team, because Tesla Toolbox and Tesla Service Mode is available for free in the vehicles, but you can even get like Service Mode Plus with repair diagnostics and remote access, and you can subscribe on a 24-hour basis for not much money at all. So Tesla has really embraced the right to repair and making it super easy for third-party shops and owners to fix their own cars, and I think that's extremely commendable. The Otter83 says, what area or region of the country needs to see a quantum leap in charging options? I think this is a clear answer, and it's the Northeast of America. Surprisingly, here in the Southeast, where I live now in North Carolina and South, there are tons of charging options all over the Southeast. The Southwest, 1 million charging options. The Pacific Northwest, 1 million charging options. Texas, the Central Americas, not in terms of Central America, but Central North of US, tons of charging options on highway corridors. Whenever I go to New York, Boston, Vermont, any of those, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, name the Northeast state you want to go to. That's where I grew up. Man, it's such a pain to charge, and they're in terrible locations, and you can't get high power charging where you want it. And yeah, there seems to be some new charging networks popping up in that region called Apple Green. They seem to be completely unreliable based on my experience so far. I just really hope to see more charging come to the New England area that would be welcomed by EV drivers from all over who happen to travel there. Mountain Chap asks, when traveling, what's the easiest way to locate an Ionna station when a Tesla charger isn't nearby? So perhaps Mountain Chap is a Tesla driver who wants to use Ionna as backup stations. The best way I've found so far to look for Ionna sites is actually using the app called PlugShare. They allow you to filter by networks of preference. So when I'm going through PlugShare recently, I've just selected Mercedes and Ionna and BP Pulse, because I'm still trying to figure out if I like BP Pulse and if they're committed to reliability or not. But I'll go through those three and try to road trip around those charging equipment. Also, most of them are installing Alpitronic Hyper 400 chargers, which I love because they give us a ton of juice. And so, yeah, that's what I would say is the best way to do it. Use PlugShare and filter by network. Ionna does not have an app. They have a web app, like a website portal, but it's pretty hard to find chargers through there. Just use PlugShare and filter for Ionna. The last question comes to us from Now Teslafy. If you discharge a Tesla completely until it will no longer drive, will it recover some charge if you let it sit for a few hours? It's an interesting question that you bring up, because we run EVs to dead all the time on this channel. And typically once they die, I plug them in and we're good to go. And I would say the answer to your question is on the newer cars, no. Once they're dead, I've not seen them wake back up and want to turn on again. Usually once the high voltage battery dies, the 12-volt battery will last for a certain period of time before that goes dead, and then you'll need to jump the 12-volt battery in order to charge the high voltage battery, which is why I plug them in immediately as soon as they die so we don't risk killing the 12-volt, because that becomes a real pain with electric cars. Your question does work on older Teslas, surprisingly, and it might work in the rare circumstance even on a newer car. It's always worth trying if you're in a pickle. And some cars are actually designed to sit and then restart. For example, Volkswagen Group vehicles typically give you a restart after they die to get you a couple hundred meters just to get off the road. And so Porsche vehicles in our range tests, you'll notice we turn them back on after they die and keep going, because there's always a little bit under there. However, with older Tesla vehicles, especially those with a lot of internal resistance in the cell, they'll get a lot of voltage sag down low, especially if you're pushing it hard and it runs out of charge. If you're towing, if you are on the motorway and you happen to run out, typically what you can do with those vehicles is let them sit not for a few hours, but maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And that's enough to naturally let the packs come up voltage wise, especially if there's a few weak cells in there to balance out. And you might even get a restart out of the car and get it moving again. So it is possible in the rare circumstance, it's always worth trying, that if you're in a pickle and you let the car sit after it's died for 10 minutes, you might be able to start it up and move it a little bit again. And that is just has to do with the natural voltage sag of the cells and then coming back up to resting. It's always worth a shot if needed. So there you go. Those were 8 questions sent to us by viewers on this episode of EV Inbox. I really enjoy doing these. Perhaps we'll have guests join, experts in certain areas on these. I do think it's worth doing a dedicated video on what causes charger derates. So stay tuned for that at some point in the future. But leave whatever else you want to know in the comments below. Big thank you guys for asking, and we'll see you on another one again soon. Bye-bye.